So today's lesson is an introductory to sewing bandings, and the banding we're going to be sewing on today is going to be on the bottom of the valance. Now I'm just going to show you, although we're not going to be doing one that's arch, I'm going to show this banding to you, and that's what it looks like. I have it on the top because I just recently did a video on sewing a separate rod pocket a pocket onto the valance. But you can see on the bottom of this we have a nice 1/2 inch little contrast banding, and the banding is sewn so it's on the front and the back of it, just like that. It's actually one piece. So, but we're not going to be doing the arched one or a shaped one. If you're a beginner, you always want to choose a project that's simple and take baby steps with it. If you're going to do something, you don't want to make it so it's frustrating. So start with something very basic and then move your way up, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to sew a banding onto a straight valance. Now unfortunately this one is going onto a board, and I'll show you that later because it's actually going on a Roman shade. So I can't show you on this exact one how to do it into a rod pocket, but I do have other videos. So I think if you combine the two videos, you'd be able to put the banding on the bottom of your valance, switch over to the other video that I have, and be able to finish it off. Anyhow, we're going to be putting on a 1-inch banding just like this on the bottom. And as you can see from here, it's on the bottom, but it's also on the back side of it. And one of the nice things about doing this is because it keeps the lining up a little farther, so you don't have a peekaboo effect with the lining. And also when it goes around the return right here on the side, you get the black showing or your contrast banding showing rather than the lining. So it is a nice look that way. So that being said, we're only going to be working with one width of fabric on each. And if your valance is longer, you just sew your widths together to get the appropriate width that you're looking for. So what I did is I've got, my valance is 10 inches deep. This valance is going to be 10 inches deep. Right now it's 10.5 inches because I need a 1/2 inch to attach it to the board. So that being said, this is my main fabric. Now for a 10-inch valance, I actually cut my fabric 10 inches deep. And the reason why I did that is because I'm putting a 1-inch banding. So by the time I take a 1/2 inch sewing allowance on the bottom, and I take my 1/2 inch sewing allowance on the top, that's 1 inch. So by adding an inch banding, it's still going to come out 10 inches. So here is the main fabric. Now, this is my banding. To get a 1-inch banding, you need 1 inch to go on the face of the fabric, onto the front. But since it's going to go on the back, you need an additional 1 inch. So that's 2 inches. Plus you need your sewing allowance. The sewing allowance is to be, so when you sew it onto your lining here and your fabric, you're going to lose another inch. So I've cut this 3 inches. 1 inch for the face of my valance, 1 inch to go around the back side of the valance, a 1/2 inch to sew it to the face of my my valance, and the extra inch to go onto the lining. As you watch this video, you'll get a better understanding. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm putting it on the bottom, so I want to make sure that I've got this turned around. So this is I've got my flowers going upward, and this is my valance, the bottom of my valance here. And this shiny side here, although you cannot detect it, matter of fact, it's very hard for me even to detect it, it's easier for me to say. This is the face of my banding. So what I want to do is I want to take the face of my banding and I want to put it down on top of the face of my fabric. So the print and the face of my banding are facing each other. Like that. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pin this in. I'm not going to overly pin it in. I see a lot of people on YouTube sewing and they put 100 pins. I don't like to do that. I like enough that I can sew it on, but I don't want so many that it actually gathers the fabric. And I also put my pins in a little different. If you've watched my YouTube videos before, I don't put my pins in this direction with the fabric. It's just my preference. I like to go in this way. And if I have my pin every 10 inches or so, that's fine. I just want it to hold it there as I'm sewing. Just like that. Now I've already changed my thread on my machine. So on the machine I have a black thread going onto the banding, and on the back over here I'm actually just using a white thread because I'm going to be adding the white lining to it. I know it's hard to see the white lining on the white table. I've gotten plenty of complaints about that before. But there's not much I can do about it, but I do apologize. So now let's go over to the sewing machine. Let's sew on this banding and begin our project. I've talked about this before. I have this magnet right here, and we're fortunate enough on our machines that we have for a 1/4 inch line, 1/2 inch, 3/4. I know a lot of your home sewing machines don't have that. So it'd be helpful to take a ruler, put it at the 1/2 inch mark, right where your needle is, and place a magnet right there if you need to. That'll keep your stitching at a 1/2 inch. We're only taking a 1/2 inch allowance on this. That's why we cut our material 3 inches. We're taking a 1/2 inch allowance on this and a 1/2 inch allowance on the other side when we attach our lining. So we're going to go ahead and sew this on. You may have noticed I didn't even remove a pin. That's because these industrial sewing machines will skip right over the pin, or if it hits the pin a little bit, it just moves the pin over. So I don't bother taking these out until the end. Actually, if it wasn't for this video, I probably wouldn't even put pins in it, just because I've been sewing for a number of years, you might say. Anyhow, let's go back over to the table. We're going to press this now. Okay, so we're at the pressing board, and this is the banding we sewed on. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over like that, and we're going to press this. And when you press it, you want to make sure that you're pressing it into the banding like this. And what this is doing is kind of running over the seam, and it's pressing it, giving it a nice flat press. And this is what it looks like on the back side. Now I purposely pressed this seam. I could either pressed it, turn this way, I could have either pressed this up or down. Okay, so I could have even pressed it this way. The reason why I didn't press it this way is because this is the darker of the two fabrics. And sunlight is like an x-ray machine. So if I press this up, there's a good chance that in here in the light time you might have seen that dark. But since this is really black, you're not going to. And that's why I elected to press it the seam down. Now, if this banding was white, I would do just the opposite. I'd be pressing it this way so the dark goes up towards my print, so anyhow, that's just how you would do it in most cases. Anyhow, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our lining on, and we're going to pin our lining in. Now I'm putting my lining face down, and I'm putting the banding side on top of it. Now I'd rather do it this way than to flip it over and sew it on this way. And the reason why is because I have black thread running through the top of my machine. So I want the black thread to go onto the black banding. So therefore I'm flipping it around, and I'm going to be sewing the banding side opposed to the lining side, just because usually there's no preference, with the exception that when you're running two different color threads, the bottom spool thread is white to match the lining. And again, I'm going to pin it back in just the way we did before. A little back tack, and away we go. So the pins have been removed. The next step is to press this. And I want to press this again in towards the banding, just like I did before. But I'm going to do it on the lining side so I can watch what's happening. And you just want to make sure that when you lay this out, you take your hand behind there and make sure that the seam allowance is going in towards the banding. You should be able to feel it, and you should be able to actually see it right through the fabric. Once you know you have it there, then you go ahead and you press that also. Okay, the next step is to bring this and fold it in half. And again, since I have my black thread up on the top, I want to turn it around so I see the face of it. And we are going to pin the top. And the only thing, since this is not a rod pocket and I need to have my top open, the only thing I'm actually sewing are the sides. I am not sewing across the top of here. Now, if this was a rod pocket, I would be sewing across the top. I'd be sewing from the bottom up about halfway, and from the bottom all the way up on this side. And then when I sewed it, I'd take my hand, I'd bring it in, and I'd pull the whole thing through. So again, if you watch my other video on doing a rod pocket valance, follow this to where I have it right now, and then switch over, and you can watch my other video on how to make this into a rod pocket rather than the banding that I'm showing you right now. Go ahead, and I'm going to sew this down, again, a 1/2 inch on either side of it. I'll be right back. I'm not going to actually show you that, but I'll show you the next step afterwards. I think you've got this sewing. All I'm going to do is sew it down all the way from the bottom to the top on both sides. Alright, so I sewed up each side right here, right there. Still on the wrong side. I removed my pins. Thought I removed all my pins. And now we're going to flip it over. take a pin in the corners and pull out the excess material. The next thing, because this is going on a valance, before I press this banding, we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew this down right here. I'm going to put some pins in. Then we're going to go ahead and bring it over to the sewing machine. And sew it down. Now I'm only going to sew this top at 1/4 inch. And the only reason, because it's being mounted onto a board, and I'll take a 1/2 inch when I staple it onto the board. And here we go. At this point, we're just going to press. Just going to press that banding, give it a nice clean finish. Press it on the face, and then we're going to press it on the back side as well. And because this is going on a board, it's going to be going, there's going to be a shade on this, a Roman shade, and this is the attached valance, which I will show you. This valance eventually is going to have to go around this corner. So to do that, I like to press in that's a 3.5 inch board. So I like to press these so it has a nice crisp corner as it's going around. So I'm going to measure my 3.5 inches. Give it a press. If this was rod pocket, you wouldn't have to do this. Unless it's a flat rod pocket. If you were to put this on just a rod pocket that's flat, then I would suggest doing this because it defines the corner a little better. There you have it. You're finished. Got a nice little valance, fabric side and the lining side. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this helps you. And like I say, when it comes to sewing, if you're a novice at sewing, baby steps. Don't get frustrated. Don't take on something that's too hard. Do little steps at a time. And this is a good start, good introduction to putting banding on. Take care and good luck, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.